Hello everyone, it's my pleasure to be here with you today and thank you Craig and the whole of GTI for the invitation and for our continued excellent partnership. Now I want to start off today with a number, 5.5 billion. Now what do you think that number represents? Well, here's another number for you, 8.8 billion, and one more, 13.8 billion. What do these numbers represent? Well, 5.5 billion is the number of projected smart home IoT connections by 2030. 8.8 billion is the number of smart building IoT connections by 2030. And 13.8 billion is the number of consumer IoT connections by 2030. That's a lot of connections, and by 2030 it's expected that 63% of total IoT connections will be enterprise IoT connections. And what will be behind it all? Well, 5G of course, there is no question about it. 5G is going to completely transform our lives over the next 30 years. By the end of 2021, 176 mobile operators had launched 5G services in 70 markets around the world. Now this year we expect 1 billion 5G connections globally. And by 2025, we expect 5G to account for a quarter of total mobile connections across the world. So there is absolutely no doubt that 5G is the future. So let me pose a question, and it's vitally important in today's world. What role does 5G have in helping us build a greener and more sustainable future? How will tech innovations play a role in boosting green and low carbon development? Right now, there are almost 8 billion of us in the world, and by 2050, there will be 10 billion of us. The new economy will require 80% more energy than we are producing now to sustain us all. And by now, we all know that business as usual will not meet these needs. We will need to innovate at scale, developing solutions that are good for us, good for business and good for the planet. But here's what's really interesting. Last year, the Chief Scientist Advisor here in the UK said that the most of the technologies needed to shift to a greener world are already visible. And he warned against relying on magic new technology still to come, which will solve the problem. And we totally agree. In recent research conducted with the Carbon Trust, we found that smart technology can contribute 40% of the required carbon emission savings that the world needs by 2030 across the energy, transport, manufacturing and building sectors. So let's start with the energy sector, which will need to halve its carbon emissions by 2030 if it's going to achieve the goal of net zero by 2050. Now that's a huge task. But with connected wind and solar grids, the global energy sector could reduce emissions by 46%. And it does not need to stop there. Once we have green energy in place, smart technology will allow for a more efficient distribution of this energy. Smart grid connected through sensors and IoT devices, all driven by 5G, will enable cities and businesses to accurately monitor their systems, to detect and respond to fluctuation energy demands, and ensuring uninterrupted energy supplies. Now this is not just a theory. In Sweden, Telia is already seeing the benefits of connected grids. Since implementing smart grid equipment on electricity lines, Telia has seen a 25% increase in power line capacity, quicker identification of faults, and increased carbon efficiency. So we already have the technologies, we just need to scale them. Manufacturing and building are another big source of greenhouse gas emissions. And this sector will also need to halve its emission by 2030. Smart factories could contribute to reducing 16% of those emissions, meaning a saving of 1.4 gigatons of carbon emissions by 2030. The same emission as the manufacture of 140 million cars. By using connected technologies powered by 5G, the sector could improve efficiencies across production lines, inventory management, and connected robotics. It would also help with material recycling, moving us closer to a more circular economy where products, components and materials are reused rather than wasted. In Germany, DHL supply chain is piloting new IoT technology to monitor operational activities within their warehouse in real time. Working with Cisco and Conduce, they have developed a system which allows them to visualize the operations within a warehouse by using heat maps. And in China, Foxconn's industrial internet lights-off factory has used the power of 4G and 5G and IoT connections to increase production efficiency by 30%, reduce its inventory cycle by 50%, and reduce labor costs with an annual saving of $1.6 million. But these two examples are few and far between. In fact, even though connected technologies exist, today they are only being used in 1% of factories around the world. Yes, just 1%. So the opportunity here is enormous. Another area of great opportunity is the transport sector. Currently, electric cars account for only 0.8% of all cars on the road. Now, progress is being made, but it is way too slow. The technology already exists to cut carbon emissions from the sector deeper and faster. By using connectivity, we can enhance electric vehicle charging infrastructure and optimize transport routes. And of course, good connectivity in 5G mobile networks will allow more of us to work from anywhere in the world, reducing commuter journeys. Overall, with these connected technologies, the transport sector could cut 65% of the required emissions by 2030. And that is equivalent to 2.8 billion flights from New York to Paris. As we look to the future, the mobile industry is in a unique position to play an enabling role across the globe. But we must make sure that we also play our part. In 2019, the GSMA board set an ambition for the mobile sector to reach net zero emissions by 2050. And since we set this ambition, we are now one of the leading sectors within the space, being recognized by the United Nations Race to Zero as one of the first breakthrough sectors. We now have 80% of the mobile operators by revenue are disclosing their climate impact. 2/3 of mobile operators by revenue are committed to rapidly cutting emissions of their whole value chain by 2030. And 1/3 have gone even further to set a net zero target for their value chains by 2050 or earlier. Smart transport, smart energy, smart factories, smart homes, smart health, smart agriculture, and the list will just continue to grow, driven by connected technologies, powered by 5G. A decarbonized world is a digital world that will be greener, cleaner, and smarter. We already have the technologies, but they need to be scaled, and the sooner the better. We will need to work across sectors, across industries, and across governments. Only by acting together, leveraging the power of mobile technology, can we create lasting change and build a smarter, greener world for us all. Thank you for listening. Thank you and bye-bye.